Sometimes you just have to take a victory lap. For those of us, and we're all interested, you have discussions with family and friends and online, and you're trying to get people to look at the truth, the deceptions out there, the massive numbers of deceptions. As I tell my family, don't believe anything you see on television. Don't believe anything you see on the mainstream news. It's all controlled. And they just can't wrap their heads around this. And I think part of it is just fear. They're afraid if you look past the screen, the smoke screen that they put up, what you're going to see behind it is this terrifying truth. And a lot of people would rather, take the blue pill, live in that blissful ignorance. But sometimes there's an event that's so extreme, so in your face, so obvious, that it simply can't be ignored or denied anymore. And what it demonstrates is that the rabbit hole goes a heck of a lot deeper than most people ever wanted to go. I mean, think about it. Think of all the headlines after headlines, debunking the fact that COVID came from a lab. It came from bat soup, they said, despite evidence that these bat caves are anywhere from 40 miles to 1,000 miles away from Wuhan. So apparently some peasant collected some bats in a bucket, walked 1,000 miles, which is a third to halfway across the continental U.S., to Wuhan, which had a lab studying these viruses in them. But it was the bats, you see. It was the bats. And anyone that would suggest otherwise had hate in their heart. That was their only motivation, was hatred in their heart, and not, let's look at the evidence. And they just pounded this over and over, debunked PolitiFact, debunked Snopes, debunked all these so-called trusted authorities. Fauci on again and again and again, saying, nope, came from bats, didn't come from the lab, don't look over here, nothing to see here. And it's interesting, this is why I love these cut and dry, crystal clear examples, because I get comments like this sometimes. Prove to me that the left is lying and the right has the truth. Now, I did this on a video on John Oliver, talking about how comedians on the left, which I repeat myself, aren't really funny anymore because they're telling, I guess, jokes. But what they're going for is applause, not laughter, not like a natural laughter. It's a fake laugh. Ha ha ha, That's what I want to hear. That's what I agree with. Prove to me that the right has the truth.
I'll get you in a second. Can I get back to what we were talking about just a second ago? I missed the interruption. Are you suggesting that maybe you have some evidence that this was not a naturally occurring virus?
We're going to see what it is. You're talking about the virus and where it came from?
Yeah.
No, we're going to see where it is. We're going to see where it comes from. And, look, you know every theory. You had the theory from the lab, you had the theory from many different, the bats, the type of bat, and the bat is 40 miles away, so it couldn't have been here, and it couldn't have been there. And there's a lot of theories. But, we have people looking at it very, very strongly. Scientific people, intelligence people, and others.
And what gives you?
We're going to put it all together. I think we're going to have a very good answer eventually.
And what gives you?
China might even tell us. China may tell us.
And what gives you a high degree of confidence that this originated from the Wuhan Institute of Virology?
I can't tell you that. I'm not allowed to tell you that.
Mr. President?
Jeff, go ahead.
Yeah, because the president does have sources that he can't discuss, but he was the president. Evidence. And you gotta miss the guy. I mean, Trump demands China pay the world $10 trillion in biological war reparations. Yeah, works for me. In fact, I think he should just pay the U.S. that much for the amount of productivity we lost by shutting down. Trump said now even the so-called enemy are beginning to say that President Trump was right about the China virus coming from the Wuhan lab. The correspondence between Dr. Fauci and China speaks too loudly for anyone to ignore. China should pay $10 trillion to America and the world for the death and destruction they have caused. And it's interesting to see them rush to do damage control. We got to get together. We got to talk. How do we form a narrative going forward? We don't want to flip-flop although they've already done that plenty of times. And it wasn't just Donald Trump. There were other leaders on the right that were pointing out the contradictions and the problems with what Fauci was saying. You can see here a vindicated Rand Paul, who sparred with Fauci very publicly, decimates Fauci over emails.
All right, joining us now is one of the few who questioned Dr. Fauci's expertise and motives. As early as we did, Kentucky Senator Rand Paul. Senator, you are now calling for the firing of Anthony Fauci. What can you do in the Senate to get more answers than the ones that we have from these emails, which are still redacted?
You know, I think we've had a sea change of opinion. Everybody left of center was saying this was a conspiracy. No way could it have happened in the Wuhan lab. Now even Dr. Fauci is saying that we should investigate it. But the emails paint a disturbing picture of Dr. Fauci from the very beginning worrying that he had been funding gain-of-function research. And he knows it to this day, but hasn't admitted. We have to get Democrat counterparts that will actually use the committee hearings to investigate this. But so far, it's been such a partisan support for Dr. Fauci that he can do no wrong. But really, there's a lot of evidence that he has a great deal of conflict of interest, and that if it turns out this virus came from the Wuhan lab, which it looks like it did, that there's a great deal of culpability in that he was a big supporter of the funding. But he also is a big supporter to this day of saying we can trust the Chinese on this. We can trust the Chinese scientists. And I think that's quite naive and really should preclude him from the position that he's in.
And referencing the point you just made, Senator, the emails, they show that Fauci was scrambling in those early days of the pandemic to find out the links between the NIH-funded gain-of-function research and COVID. Now, here's how one of his NIH underlings responded to this email about a 2015 gain-of-function study that was co-authored by the Wuhan Institute of Virology's Bat Lady. And he said, the paper you sent me says the experiments were performed before the gain-of-function pause, but have since been reviewed and approved by NIH. Not sure what this means, since Emily is sure that no coronavirus work has gone through the P3 framework. Explain that, Senator. Why is that so significant?
Here's, Laura, what makes it worse. 2 weeks ago in committee hearing, he said they did not fund any gain-of-function research. I quoted that specific paper.
Right.
So the very paper that he puts in the email, he says, oh my goodness, we need to read this paper because looks like we are actually funding gain-of-function research, which is where we juice up these viruses, take them from animals and infect them into humans. He's admitting that to his underling. He's worried about this in February of last year. But only 2 weeks ago, he tells me, oh, it wasn't gain-of-function research. But in his email, in the subject line, he says gain-of-function research. He was admitting it to his private underlings 7, 8, 9 months ago.
But, you know, he was supposed to get a book if he did as the deep state wanted. Expect the unexpected. It was 80 pages long and would cost $20. That's 25 cents a page. You weren't meant to read it. It was meant to be this coffee table virtue signaling display. But now Amazon and Barnes & Nobles have suddenly pulled it. Well, so much for your reward from the devil, Fauci. Your Faucian deal has reaped its rewards. Now, what's interesting is when you read some of this, when it first broke out, their primary concern, like you see in the movies, like, what do we do? How do we prevent this from spreading? How do we protect people? And we got to save lives. That's not actually what they were talking about. It was, how do we achieve a narrative consensus? How do we craft the information we let out in order to make people behave how we want? What it was an interest in control, not an interest in truth. And I get a lot of flack when I make climate change videos explaining to people that scientists aren't just these priests of truth that hand out facts. You know, I point out science is not a person. It's a process. The science says. Science doesn't say anything. Science is a process, using the experimental scientific method, reproducible and repeatable in a lab. Scientists are human beings that are vulnerable to political pressure, bribery, and in this case, threats. Former CDC chief was getting death threats from fellow scientists because he wanted to discuss the lab leak theory while they wanted the bat soup ones. Think about that. These so-called objective priest classes of truth that are just handing us out facts about, the end of the world's coming. Giving each other death threats? I thought they were just telling us the truth. I thought we could trust our establishments. They wouldn't be influenced by politics. They wouldn't be influenced by ideology. They wouldn't be influenced by money. It's the science. There were two bureaus, the State Department's Bureau of Arms Control Verification and Compliance and the Bureau of International Security and Non-Proliferation, both warned their leaders not to pursue an investigation into the origin of COVID because it would, quote, open a can of worms if it continued. You mean it would look bad on Biden and Obama, the administration that allowed this gain-of-function research, right? It always comes back to Obama. Thanks, Obama. For most of the past year, the lab leak scenario was treated not simply as unlikely or even inaccurate, but as morally out of bounds. In late March, former Center for Disease Control Director Robert Redfield received death threats from fellow scientists after telling CNN he believed COVID had originated in a lab. I was threatened and ostracized because I proposed another hypothesis, Redfield told Vanity Fair. I expect it from politicians. I didn't expect it from science. But now we can see how consensus is achieved. 9 out of 10 scientists agree, right? Well, because they're destroyed. They lose money. They're attacked, ostracized. You name it. All they worry about is the narrative. And so what do you do with all this information? I mean, I think it shows well why we shouldn't have socialism or, God forbid, communism. Centralizing power in the hands of a few. Look at what they've done. Look at all the mistakes they've made. This is why freedom is so important, freedom of speech. The ability to post legal and honest discussion on the internet and talk about it. And you certainly see now that we can't trust any of our institutions, that they're all vulnerable to extreme levels of political pressure. Look at the news outlets that lied to you and look at the people that were telling the truth. Zero Hedge, for one, is at least an outlet you should consider reading every day. Yes, they've predicted 250 of the last 2 recessions. They have a bearish bent. Keep that in mind when you're reading them, but they get a lot of information out that the mainstream news won't touch. Even look at Alex Jones. Yes, he may have got some reporting in the past wrong, but he didn't cause 2 forever wars in the Middle East that cost hundreds of thousands of lives. So even his evils, so to speak, are greatly exaggerated, and he's the grandfather of conspiracy theorizing, and so that anyone that discusses conspiracies really owes him a debt of gratitude. In fact, anyone that's in favor of Donald Trump owes him a debt of gratitude. The Huffington Post called Trump the InfoWars president. Without Alex Jones, I don't think you ever would have been able to get a Donald Trump in office. The impact that Alex Jones has had on our political sphere is immeasurable, and he has gotten a lot of truth out. Okay, he says weird things. Okay, he's also an entertainer. But he sure has gotten a lot out there, too. And then you've got to consider, what else did they lie to us about? I mean, Fauci himself admitted that the virus is too small for a mask to prevent it for masks to prevent transmission. Well, but then he comes out and says, not only should we be wearing 1, but maybe we should be wearing 2 or 3, and then just a couple weeks later says we can take them off. You can see how the science is just politically convenient set of talking points and not facts. You can also see your health and well-being is not the concern of the state. Gone are the days when you could put your faith in some expert on the television and trust that, well, they're doing what's best for all of us. They're not. It's clear. It's obvious. You're going to have to start doing your own research. You're going to have to start applying critical thinking to what is being presented in front of you. Because I've been picking a lot of these ideas apart for a long time using logic and reason and say, hey, this just doesn't make sense. How does a computer model compute into reality when you consider something like chaos theory or the butterfly effect? It doesn't. You can't just trust anymore. You can't just have blind trust because they have ulterior political goals and they're vastly influenced by men with incredible amounts of money that have intentions that they aren't good. They aren't good for you. They aren't good for the world. In fact, at this point, it is the stories coming out like this, it now shows that it is morally irresponsible to simply trust the mainstream news, to go along with what they tell you to do just because they say to do it. It's moral irresponsibility. It's one of the reasons I harp so much on moral courage, standing up to this. If Texas hadn't stand up to the lockdowns and mask mandates, we might still be locked down. But of course, it took that courage. It took that first step, and then other people followed, and the next thing you know, the walls came down. And that doesn't mean go charging to the front of the pack and do something crazy or do something measured, do something reasonable, do something you can do. Spread information. If you liked this video, maybe share it. If you want to see more information like this, find people that are putting it out and engage with them. Help them grow an audience. As I keep pointing out, there's no reason to be blackpilled. History is far from settled. It's occurring right now, and when you see immediate U-turns that can happen on the most settled of sciences because of inconvenient truths that suddenly arose out of the blogosphere, you can see we're continuing to move along. Nothing is predetermined. It's just like Terminator 2. There's no fate but what you make. And so bask in this win. This was a huge win for truth seekers around America and around the world. And keep in mind, don't let go of that evidence. Don't let them memory hole things. Don't let them distract you with tales of extraterrestrials. That's just dead catting. Stay focused. Keep gathering information, because you never know. You never know what little bit of information, what snowball tumbling down the hill is going to turn into an avalanche.